Hey, welcome back to another episode of Awake Narcissist, where we're spreading the news that narcissists are people too. For so long, I thought trying harder would fix everything. It didn't, and it made me feel more disconnected in a lot of ways. I want to jump into that today a bit. Before we go further, make sure you subscribe, like, thumbs up, drop some comments below, ask questions, what's working for you, what's not. I'd love to interact with you guys in the comment sections. All right, so I want to talk about the concept of intentional connection as an alternative to just a reflexive response. This is talking about certainly prior to becoming aware of my narcissism, which was the majority of my life until the last couple of years, really. And even at the beginning of the process of waking up to the narcissism, this was still at play, though now it's at play much less in terms of trying harder. And this can be a big issue, and I imagine a lot of you can relate, because when you don't know that that's what you have going on, or you don't know sort of the comprehensiveness of the narcissism and how it affects every aspect of your interactions with people and your relationships, you get a lot of feedback. And I'll speak for me. I have gotten a lot of feedback over the years that there's something not quite right in terms of like my responses to people, my relationality, how much I express care, whether I care or not, and all these kind of things. And throughout my life, when I would get those types of feedback, I was just like, oh man, yeah, I suck at that. All right, I got to try harder. And that's what I would even tell people, gosh, I hear that I didn't reach out to you for 2 weeks. And so that made you feel like I didn't care. I do care. And then mental note, okay, just got to try harder, put some alerts in my phone, write some notes down. But the thing is that when you don't know and you're not aware and awake to the underlying baseline equations at work in yourself. So for me, one of those in this arena was that, if I get closer to people and show them that I care, or try to do that, they're going to find out there's something wrong with me and that I'm unlovable. So for a long time, in my adult life at least, I became aware that something wasn't quite right. And I became aware really because of the input of the people around me. I would get frequent feedback and responses from people that something wasn't right. I didn't care. I was irrelevant. I didn't listen and like respond well to their emotions or have empathy or these kind of things. And for a long time, I just internalized all of that as there was something wrong with me. But it wasn't like understanding that my brain worked differently. At the time earlier, it was really like I'm just lazy, I'm not disciplined, I don't try hard enough, I'm a bad person, I have bad memory, things like that. And so I was really set on the idea that if I just tried harder, if I put more effort in, if I had more discipline, if I set reminders, if I had a better memory, if I just tried to care more, that would somehow solve it. Also, I had no idea that my brain worked differently in terms of these things. I thought that the fact that I didn't think about people when I wasn't around them frequently, but then when I was around them, I was happy to be around them and cared and all that stuff. But then they'd be gone out of my space and out of sight, out of mind. That's a big one for narcissists. I would think that if I just tried harder, like there was just something wrong with me. I was just bad at it, and it was just a matter of mental discipline and effort. And the truth is that no amount of mental discipline and effort is going to get you there, is going to help you make that change until you really understand what's going on underneath. And when I look back, it's like that all made sense, because I didn't really know that my brain worked differently. And if the context is there's something wrong with you and you just don't try hard enough, the answer pretty simply seems like just try harder and that'll solve it. But what I kept running into was that wasn't solving it. And in some cases, it actually was making it worse. Like with my kids, for example, because I would get, especially my oldest daughter would express, her unhappiness with my sometimes there, sometimes absent. And so I was like, oh, if I just try harder. So then I would try harder for short bursts But then because I didn't understand what was going on and just trying harder wasn't ever going to be a successful strategy, it would actually make the times when I would retreat harder for her and more painful. So in that sense, it actually kind of made it worse. But I didn't get it. I still thought, okay, I'm just a bad person. I just try harder. I'll get there. And once you understand what's going on underneath, the differences in the way your brain works, the differences in the way you experience and show care, then you can actually start crafting your life in a way that can work for you, for whatever you want. I would suggest that it's likely that no matter where you are on the NPD scale, you do want better relationships, whatever those look like. Now, I know I've gotten some comments from some of you guys that like, you're better off just being alone. I totally get that feeling. There are times when I feel that way myself, certainly in the past a lot, even now though. And still, now I know that I want better relationships that work better. Not that like I have to stuff myself, round peg into a square hole, but that the true me can be authentically present in those relationships and not feel like I have to try harder to connect. So what would happen in the past is that when those situations would arise, I would think I'd have to try harder, but what I would end up doing is reflexively retreating. And whether that was in the conversation, just shutting down, most commonly that shutting down was going into a mental gymnastics of how do I respond in a way that this person's going to be okay with what I say, a whole external referral or inauthenticity performance, putting on a mask, and wanting to be around that person less and less and less. Even if I really like them and like the relationship, that threat of what I was saying earlier about the connection causing them to figure it out and all that stuff was so strong that reflexively would cause me to back away from the relationship. But what I've learned now in this journey of understanding that my brain works differently is that just trying harder to be like everybody else is always going to be a losing battle. And so it really has become about understanding myself well and continuing that process, that adventure of understanding myself well, so that I can accept the reality of who I am and then operate from there rather than just some idea that like I'm just lazy and if I just try harder, I'll do okay. Like if somebody's sharing something, meaningful and emotional to them, you start getting that reflexive panic, which is what would happen for me. What I can do instead, I can intervene and say something like, hey, instead of pretending that I'm feeling deeply moved, because I can see this is something that's really important to you. Now I'll say something like, wow, that sounds tough, or that sounds like this is really important to you, or that sounds like, because I can figure that out. We all can, whether you have empathy or not. Like when other people are emoting, what's going on with them to some degree, enough to make a general statement, like, wow, that sounds tough, or that sounds hard, or I can tell that's really important to you or meaningful to you. Help me understand it, because I don't naturally understand that. That's a powerful one because it displays that you have interest. You just don't know where to land that interest. And if they can be open to working with you, these are people that would be closer who know about the NPD, then they're going to be more likely to say, oh yeah, okay, well this is, imagine this, or maybe give an analogy that helps me put myself in their shoes. So where like before I might have pretended to be moved by something that really wasn't that emotionally moving for me, now I could say like, wow, that sounds tough for you. Help me understand. Or I don't really feel that in the same way that I can tell you're feeling it, but I want to be there because, you're important to me or you're my friend or whatever. And, maybe if you express it a little differently, I can get it, or I can help you with this part of it. And this other part isn't going to land for me. So now, instead of just faking it and just trying harder, bearing down, I explain my operating system and I ask for patience as I learn and get better at operating with this new understanding of how and who I am. And so what I learned is it's not about like trying harder to be perfect. It's really about being dependable, in a funny way to say that, in the ways that I can be. Because what happened before, when I was unconscious of this stuff, I was very unreliable and undependable. And I don't mean like, if I said I would pick somebody up at 3, I wouldn't show up. What I really mean is that people couldn't depend or rely on how I was going to respond to them in terms of care and emotionality and empathy, because I was always trying to fake it, but I could never do a good enough job faking it. And so generally what I do in these situations, ideally a little beforehand, but really that's hard to do. Really, you have to do it in the moment for you to get it, but also for the other person to get it. Because if I just walked up to everybody and was like, hey, my brain works differently, I don't show care the same, so just know that from now on, okay, check the box. That's just doesn't work. It takes repetition, it takes time, because our brains work in such a different way. It's hard. What I've discovered is really hard for normies to get that. So now that I understand how those things really work for me, I can be reliable, even if it looks different than how maybe they would want it to be or expect it to be unconsciously, or just how other people do it. At least now I can be reliable to the reality of who I am as I learn to become more authentic and showing up more as who I am. So the most important part for me as the narcissist is to intervene in the reflexive response, to set the intentions ahead of time that I want these intentional connections, and to be willing to be honest in the moment when the panic arises, to just say, hey, however it works. Some people, I'm like, hey, I'm having one of those things. I don't have a response. All I can do is think about what I think you want me to say here. And I know that's not what you want. So let me just take a breath, figure out how to respond in a way. Or we got to return to this later. Or, hey, I can see that's important to you. This is a big deal. I'm not seeing it because my brain just works differently. Can you help me see it? Let's work on that so we can really be on the same page. Things like that. So this is another one of those lessons of I'm not just some bad person with something wrong with me. I'm different, and I can still have satisfying life and even actually relationships based on that foundation of who I really am and how I really work, and how that relates to the other people, rather than bearing down and trying harder to fake it. So it's never about being perfect, because I don't know if, someday I'll just be able to respond without any of that stuff, that I'll grow my empathy muscle enough that I'll be able to be like a normie in that way. I don't know. But what I do know is that if I'm consistent and reliable in terms of being authentic about what's really happening, that then people can, who I'm in a relationship, can have a foundation to build that relationship on together. And, they might decide they don't want that. There's certainly people out there who, as they've learned about my differences, as I've become more authentic about it, that aren't as interested in having close relationships. And you don't have to do anything. But I would recommend for you, the NPDers out there, that you make it that okay in yourself, because you can't force people to like you if they don't. You can't force them to want to have a relationship with you as you're growing, changing, and evolving if they don't. Better to find people who are interested in that and be around them, because that's when you can really grow together. I'm going to give you an example. So the other day we were dropping off one of my kids at a soccer camp. It's summer, and we ran into the family of her friend who was going to the soccer camp with her. We ended up dropping them off at the same time. And it's an hour and a half drive away up into the mountains a little bit. So nice place. And we had made plans to go on a hike after that. This is my ex-wife and one of my other daughters. And, enjoy the summer day in the mountains. And so when we ran into this other family, they said they were going to this lake nearby. And they're like, oh, you should come too. And my ex-wife was like, oh yeah, maybe let's look at it. And my daughter, who was going on the hike with us, not the soccer camp one, my other kid, was like, oh yeah, the lake, because she loves swimming, and that was like her thing. And I was like, oh, I don't want to go there and do that. And I was really considering that, because in the past I would have just felt bad about my desire to not go do that, because I don't love social situations with people who I don't know well. Like, I don't know this family at all. And I had really wanted to hike into the woods. There's a river where we were going with a waterfall and, swimming. So it's not like they wouldn't be able to swim. But it just was so different than what I was wanting qualitatively from the experience. I didn't really want to do that. I didn't really want to just go sit at a lake and have to socialize. So in the past, what I would have thought, probably subconsciously, a lot of it is, oh, it's just because I'm, shy, or I'm an introvert, and I'm just not good at talking to people. And so, but see, the messaging in there behind that is, there's something bad about me or wrong about me or insufficient about me, and that's why I don't want to do it. So I just was honest with myself. Okay, why don't I want to do this? Why is that something that I really like? It seems repelling rather than inviting or something I might want to do. And the truth is, is the way my life is constructed right now. I have several people in my world who are close to me, actually more than I probably would if I was just living on my own. And so I have that. And I also, through my work as a chiropractor, I spend all day, 5 days a week, interacting with lots of people in a more superficial way. We don't get like deep into like their feelings and what's going on in their family life, but we interact, regularly. And I don't dislike that. I'm okay, I'm okay with it. It's not my favorite part of the job, of course, but I get a lot of that. And so the idea of then going and having to do that on this weekend time when I was really looking forward to just, some time in the woods and, enjoying, just seemed like something that I didn't want to do at all. I mean, as a narcissist, as a covert narcissist like me and all, my other personality, because that's not the only thing I am, I don't love like just social situations anyway. It has the potential to trigger PTSD or performance or all these kind of things. And sometimes I purposely put myself in those situations as an opportunity to grow and learn about myself. But this was not one of those times. And so the point is, and why I'm sharing this story, is because it's a great example of just starting to understand that shift in my own mental, that I don't want to, I don't, it's not that I don't want to go to that lake and be with them because there's something wrong with me. It's really that based on who I am and how I really work, that wasn't the fit. Having to be put into a social situation with people I didn't really know and so forth was not really what I really wanted to do with my time and space that day. And so, I offered, I said, hey, you guys, I can drop you guys at the lake and, go do that hike by myself. It's not my preference, but if you really want to go do the lake, I'm okay with that. But that's what I want to do. And they decided to come with me on the hike, and we had a lovely time. It was really nice. It was a hot day, and it was a beautiful river, waterfalls. We found a great swimming hole, and all of that. So I was happy with it. I think they were happy to have made that choice too. So that's an example of how that works, where when you're intentional and really honest with yourself and understand there's not something inherently wrong with you, you just work differently, you can start operating your life from that intentionality rather than those reflexes and that anxiety. All right.